And, look, I'm an audio guy. Okay. It's what I did. And I love audio, but I also believe now that, this whole I only work with this system kind of thing is like really because I'm pretty convinced I could blindfold a lot of engineers. And if I just ran the system flat, you're not telling me what's playing. There's just not that big of secrets in technology anymore. Even in lighting, there's no real secrets. And here's the other thing. We're so many years into this that every single tech designer, what have you, has almost now worked for every iteration of whatever competition there was. So the pool of tech is so incestuous at this point that, again, there can't be secrets because this guy was here for 20 years. Now he's here or he's finishing his career out there, but he's still bringing what he did there to here. And it's been that way for so many decades now that it's just what it is.
Thanks again for joining me here on Gears of Gear today. Today on the podcast, we're joined by a gentleman whose career has helped shape the landscape of modern live production. Kidz Musgrave is the director of the Live Production Summit, Chief Innovation Officer at OSA International, and President of Tour Pro International. 3 roles that together reflect his deep influence on every side of this industry. From producing global tours and large-scale events to fostering collaboration through the Live Production Summit, Kidz has spent more than 30 years connecting people, ideas, and technology. He's worked with artists like Dave Chappelle, Limp Bizkit, and Kidz Bop, always pushing creativity and innovation forward. I'm excited to talk about Kidz's incredible journey, the evolution of live events, and what's next for this ever-changing industry. So please join me and welcome Kidz Musgrave. Hello, Kidz.
Hello.
How are you?
I am stellar. You?
I'm not quite stellar, but I'm pretty okay.
No,
I'm pretty okay right now. So I think I'm getting stellar. As the day goes on, it's becoming more stellar, which is good.
I woke up today and you don't know my history, but I've tried the alternative of not waking up, and I have found that waking up is pretty stellar.
So what's that mean? What happened?
Well, I've experienced multiple heart attacks and died a couple times.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah,
Really?
So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you were not pronounced dead, but your heart just stopped for a second
I
or
flatlined.
something?
I flatlined a couple times.
Wow.
There was one time
Couple
the
times.
worst there were 2 that were really bad. One was, well, they were all kind of involved in the music. I mean, one started on a golf course with Dickie Betts, my first one. My second one, actually, I kind of drove myself in. The third one happened while I was on tour with Fuel. And my
Jeez.
4th one was kind of at Tourlink, as a matter of fact, which is the predecessor name of what is now Live Production Summit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so you didn't get the warning after the first one. You just had to keep trying.
So unfortunately now I know a lot about this shit.
Yeah.
And it's mine came in quick succession because it's a cascading effect. I couldn't have done is first. I'm the first to admit I smoked for a lot of years, and I'm a product of the Sunset Strip in the '80s and this
Yeah.
industry. So it was not a healthy lifestyle. So I
Yeah.
sped it up, but it was going to happen to me anyways. And what I found and learned through the genetics of it is that if it's going to happen genetically, it's going to happen. Like my first heart attack, my cholesterol came back unreadable. And then we got it into the 600s and the 400s and the 300s. Yeah.
I haven't even heard of anything that high.
Exactly right. So I
Wow.
had complete blockage everywhere. It was terrible. And it was such a cycle that my body was creating it at such a
Jesus.
breakneck pace. And my first one was I was 31 years old for my first one. And so, I've played all those reindeer games, and I recommend everybody, try one on before you commit because they hurt.
Well, I pay close attention to that. My dad died at 52, and I've beat him on his
Sure.
life journey. I've passed that. And but you know, I pay a lot of attention. I go to the
Yeah.
cardiologist, and I'm a wimp. Like, I'm not one of those people who pushes until you hit the wall.
You
I
don't
pulled
realize.
back early.
You
Yeah.
don't realize it, but I also learned that, when your body's trying to, it will actually tell something. Your mind, your subconscious will realize there's something very wrong. My father
Yeah.
has severe histories, multiple strokes, a five-way bypass, a stent after the bypass, and he's still
Wow.
alive at 82. Yeah,
Wow,
yeah,
that's
so we do
incredible.
have a history of going through them and surviving them. I have
Yeah.
turned down a bypass every time, so I just have stents only because the technology in cardiac is leaps and bounds every year. It's amazing what they can do now. And
Yeah.
some of the drugs,
Yeah.
like Repatha, I would say, made a huge difference in my
I
life.
use it. Yeah, I use
Repatha is an
Repatha. Yeah.
amazing, amazing product. It's like Drano for cholesterol.
Yeah.
It's incredible
Yeah.
how well it works, and you don't have to stay on it. You use it for X amount of time, and then you're off. But it is amazing. It's
Yeah.
expensive, but amazing. Um,
Yeah,
but
yeah. I use it, and it's funny because I have pretty good cholesterol. I have actually really good cholesterol.
then why are you on
And
Repatha?
because I have some minor blockage in
Oh, okay.
lower
Sure,
the
they're
stuff
trying to
at
clean
the
it out.
bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's just like, if I can get you to zero bad
Yeah,
cholesterol,
right.
I'm going to get you to zero
Well,
LDL.
one of
Eh,
the crazy things is you think it's the big arteries, right? When really it's
Yeah.
not. It's all the little spider arteries that when they clog, there's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
They're too small to
Yeah, so
stent.
we've been paying attention to that, and I'm good. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm totally fine. My cholesterol's like, I think it was 22 or
Oh,
something, my LDL last time I
sure.
looked at it.
Yeah.
And so I'll probably be off Repatha in the next month or
Yeah.
two. I got to
Uh,
go see my cardiologist in November. But
well, we
I'm
started
good.
out on
Like,
health,
it's all
not music.
preventative for me. Yeah. Yeah, it's wild. Well, that's age, right? Like, I
We're
talk to everyone
definitely
about.
I'm reminding everybody we have been for some time now at a generational cusp.
Yeah.
So it's everybody's like, why is everybody? It's like we're at that cusp. It's that time of that
Yeah,
generation's
too
going to
many
start
friends of ours are
falling
leaving,
off. Yeah,
checking out. Yeah,
yeah, that's right.
too many friends, and
Yeah,
a lot of them younger than me, and
sure.
that's depressing. I lived just as hard as them for a long time, and then
Yeah.
stopped. But yeah, I mean, it just feels like a little bit of every one of these podcasts ends up talking about, oh,
Sure.
so
Yeah.
you're doing
Well,
TRT, are you?
I think
Whatever it is.
when you go past 50, mortality creeps into your conversations more and
Yeah,
more,
yeah,
especially at a cusp like this when so much like that's happening. So I think that's just
yeah,
normal. Everybody starts, I've touched mortality, and I'll say this that it changed my outlook on everything. I was very lucky younger. I didn't have an addictive personality other than say maybe a good time and what have you. But the hardest thing ever to quit was cigarettes. Actually, everything else
yeah.
I could walk away from when I was
A
done.
lot
I
of people
experienced
say
it.
that. A lot of
You
people
know,
say that cigarettes
cigarettes was the
were
hardest thing to
harder
walk.
than heroin.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But look,
I never.
I dabbled in everything when I was younger on the strip and everything else, and I understand how some of those were really enticing to people, and I could really see how they
Yeah.
got a problem with it. I luckily just didn't have that gene that made
Me
me
neither.
fall
Yeah.
off into it forever, but I was definitely surrounded by many and lost many to it.
For 50 years, ETC has made a name for itself in the world of entertainment technology. You can find ETC products in buildings of every size across the entire globe. Broadway shows, rock concerts, sports stadiums, outdoor parks, TV studios, and convention centers, you name it. They have all trusted ETC to make their spaces beautiful and safe. Many of these spaces include rigging systems to keep them running smoothly and safely. Fortunately, ETC Rigging offers a range of hoists and controls to accommodate the unique needs of various production spaces and budgets. ETC's motorized hoists and hoist control systems raise theater technology, including stage curtains, lighting equipment, backdrops, projection screens, and more. And the recent addition of Prodigy Balance, a new counterweight rigging solution for loads up to 1,200 pounds, brings more options to venues looking for safe, user-friendly rigging. If you need backstage rigging that is easy to learn and safe for students and volunteers to use, Prodigy Balance could be the answer. ETC is known for its customer support and 24/7, 365 availability. But now, employees have even more of a personal stake in maintaining that reputation because ETC has become 100% employee-owned. Each person building the rigging systems, developing the control software, and answering support calls is actually an owner at ETC. Outstanding support, reliable products, innovative technologies. This is the foundation of excellence ETC has built over the past 50 years, and they plan to deliver more in the next 50. For the latest ETC products and installation news, visit etcconnect.com.
Well, you know what else too? Like for me, I grew up in Western Canada and, in relative poverty. I was a musician, a working musician. And, a bag of weed for a quarter ounce of weed was like 50 or $60. And blow was like untouchable. It was like over $200 a gram, I think. And so you couldn't afford to be
Yeah.
a druggie, you just couldn't afford to.
I guess on the strip, it was all just kind of a byproduct of the environment in LA.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I grew up in the Malibu Mountains, which made it
Wow.
just, so it was kind of a byproduct there. So it wasn't really and I didn't grow up rich by any sense of the imagination. My father's an internationally known artist, and my mom was in real estate and real estate management, but it wasn't, it was just, again, it was everywhere you went, every party you went, every club you went. It was kind of just a normal thing.
Sounds like a fun life until you kind of had to put the brakes on.
I think it's interesting. All of us, I think, in this industry have led an interesting life. I consider myself very lucky as a child. I moved to Australia as a child. I visited Chichen Itza and climbed the pyramids as a child. I started traveling the world with my parents very young. My dad had an idea that the only way to truly understand a culture was to immerse yourself in it, not to visit it, not to look at it, not to judge it, go live in it. So we lived in multiple places, and that's how he spent his money, was taking us around the world. That's generally amazing. When people go, oh, that's the best place in the world, all they just told me is they've never been anywhere else.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's amazing. I'm jealous. Like I didn't start traveling until I did it for work. I think I was on my first, I remember on Pan Am Airlines, when you still walked across the tarmac at LAX, and they used to give kids the certificate for passing the equator, and you could sit in the pilot's seat, at 30,000 feet and all that. And, I played all the way, everybody smoked on board, you know what I mean? And what have you. And so like the first trips to Bavaria or the first trips to Australia in the early and mid 70s were, an interesting kind of adventure back then. That's so cool. That's so cool. I hope you realize how fortunate you were growing up like that.
I do now. And when I
with my son, I've tried to expose him to lots and lots of travel and stuff. He's 21 now, but I mean, he's been many, many places. So.
Well, something with my daughter, so if you have a young child and you can't travel, this is something I just came up with, but it worked. And my daughter's 27 now. Anyways, if you blindfold your child and spin a globe and let them just touch their finger, wherever it lands, look up whatever the most popular local dish is to that region. Then go on an adventure and find those ingredients. And what you're going to do 9 times out of 10 is meet somebody from close to that region. Otherwise, they wouldn't have those ingredients. And you're going to talk to them and tell them why. And then while you're making it, listen to local music from that area. And there used to be something called Microsoft Encarta, which was basically a digital version of encyclopedias that you could watch videos and see. And I believe heavily in the 5 senses being the most immersive. So in that moment, if you could be smelling that culture and tasting that culture and hearing sounds from that culture, it makes the immersive idea of experiencing that culture as close as you can get a little more powerful. And not all the dishes are good, and not all of them sucked, and some of them were amazing, and some of it was interesting, but that's kind of the idea, right? It's about the experience.
I friggin' love that, Chris. Like, that is such a cool idea. Like, anyone with young kids, what a great idea.
Call it World Day. Call it World Day.
Yeah, like,
Pick
let's
one
get
day
you
a
off,
week.
let's
World
get you off
Day.
TikTok. let's
Yeah,
get you
well,
off
it's
TikTok for
it's
an
not just
hour
for the
and do
kids though,
something
because
interesting.
we have so many parents that know absolutely fucking nothing about this planet they
Yeah,
live on, that it's a
so
great
true.
way for them to go, oh shit, I didn't know that, or come across a
Yeah,
meal
I'm
that
gonna
even
try
they
that with
go,
my
wow, and all of
fiance.
a sudden they're seeking out those restaurants now, realizing, wait, this place has got, it's like people think Ethiopia that there's actually some great dishes out of Ethiopia and Africa, and you know what I
Yeah.
mean, and Sri Lanka and
I
this and that.
Artistry in Motion. When it's time to make a moment unforgettable, Artistry in Motion delivers. Since 1994, they've been the go-to source for top-tier confetti and streamer special effects, turning ordinary events into explosive, show-stopping experiences. From concerts and TV production to major sporting events and theme parks, they bring the wow factor with precision and creativity. Whether you need a massive stadium drop or a subtle, picture perfect cascade, they make it happen on time every time. Their team doesn't just supply confetti, they collaborate with show designers, event planners, and production teams to ensure every effect is camera ready and crowd approved. Want to take your next event to the next level? Hit them up at artistryinmotion.com and make memories happen.
I had a guitar store, a music store in Edmonton, Canada, and there was an Ethiopian restaurant right next door to me, and so why not? And I found it weird because as a young person, like I think I was 22 or something when I had this
Sure.
music store. All I knew about Ethiopians is that they were all starving to death and thin as rails,
Yeah,
and they didn't eat anything.
sure.
They
Yeah,
they were
no.
starving. So I
Yeah.
couldn't believe that there was actually a
Mhm.
restaurant. Like I'm like,
Well,
"Hey, you know where you need to go?
yeah.
Ethiopia."
I hate to
Like
say the
they
same
need you there.
analogy, but there's people here in the United States that are starving, and if that's the only news you saw, it would be as if there's no
Yeah.
steakhouse down the street. You know what I mean?
So true, huh?
It's
So
about
true.
what narrative's being pushed for what reason.
Yeah, yeah.
You
Well,
know?
I mean, just, again, Western Canada in
Sure.
the 70s slash early 80s, my exposure to Ethiopia
Right.
was, the whatever it was called, United Way or whatever, the commercials on television
Yeah.
saying support kids in
Yeah. Well,
Ethiopia,
again,
you
their
know.
narrative, right?
Right, right. So all I knew is there was flies and skinny kids, right?
Yeah,
Because
it's
they showed
about
these
that.
little skinny kids that were
That's right.
starving and
Yeah.
there were flies all over their head and stuff.
Yeah.
It was just terrible. It
Yeah,
was
it's
so
the
sad.
narrative. Yeah.
So then I
Yeah.
met the guy next to me at this restaurant, and I used to eat there every couple of days. I mean, he'd make me some really interesting things, and we
I knew
became
some
buddies.
fat Ethiopians. They exist.
Yeah, that's funny. That's funny. Yeah, I
Uh,
love that. Wow, what a cool upbringing. So at what point, I mean, I guess the fact that your dad, you said he was an international artist or something like that, or a
yes.
renowned artist. So art being music or art being
No,
art?
art being
Like,
actually fine art. My father's a painter and a sculptist, has been his whole
oh,
life.
wow.
Um,
Interesting.
and he, yeah. It's interesting. My first trip to a recording studio happened to be the Beach Boys studio because they lived close by and they had a studio in Santa Monica. So I got to visit that. And
Right.
my dad had done stuff. I remember at one point he came home, he goes, I was at this weird meeting today, and this 6 foot blonde and this shaggy looking guy. Have you ever heard of these thing called the Rhythmics or something? And I was like, "You're Rhythmics?" And he goes,
Yeah,
yeah. That's it. And I go, Annie Lennox and Dave. Yeah. What are you
that's
doing with
cool.
them? Oh, we're just doing this thing. Oh, okay. And he did album covers for like the Jets. And interestingly enough,
Wow.
there's a painting in my living room now that we nicknamed Dwayne. That when Eat a Peach came out from the Allman Brothers, my dad bought it and he just put it on repeat. And he painted arguably one of my favorite paintings from him again that we call Dwayne. And years and years later, while I'm in Sarasota working with Dickie Betts, and Dickie's looking around at the artwork, and Dickie goes, "Man, I just really like your dad's artwork." And I told the old man, and the old man goes, "Well, shit, if I can ever do anything for him." So all of a sudden, it turns out my dad's doing artwork for one of Dickie's albums that he's recording in my studio. And this
Oh,
is one of the
geez.
best stories that should tell you how my dad is. And so Dickie's on the phone with my dad going, "Lee, I love it. What do I owe you?" And my dad goes, "Yeah, well, Dickie, if the album's worth a shit, send me a copy."
Jesus, that's incredible. That is so cool.
And Dickie, of course, took it as it was meant, tongue in cheek, and went, okay, no pressure.
Yeah,
you
that
know,
is so cool. What a great story.
yeah, which
So
Dickie had an
what
incredible personality and sense of humor anyway. So,
yeah. I was never around them.
no, yeah.
Um
Dickie was an
but it's
amazing, amazing human being in many ways, beyond even the music. Like a lot of people don't know that when I had my heart attack and basically was losing my studio, everything, 250,000 in medical bills and everything was screwed up. There's a lot of people that don't know that Dickie actually went preemptive and paid my bills for 6 months, and he actually bought all my heart
oh
meds
my
for the next
goodness.
year. And when I didn't have the studio anymore, he called one day and he goes, "Look, the bus leaves tomorrow at 1." And I go, you already have a tour manager and everything else. What am I going to do? He goes, "That's not what I said, was it? The bus leaves at 1." And he put me on
Oh,
payroll and put me back on my feet.
that is so amazing.
So
I
there's a
love
lot to
artists
that
like
man
that.
that people do not know how much he does quietly or did quietly. And, that type of person that he was is, Dickie was and he also taught me almost more about this industry than most.
You know, and I mean, too many artists are not like that.
Sure.
Too many artists are really like COVID. I think brought out it kind of showed you the
The
good from the
truth.
bad. Yeah,
Mm.
like some artists
Although,
just
wait,
completely took care of their
I'll
people, and
push
then
back
other
that. I'll
artists
push
didn't.
back on that a little bit because while they could be amazing musicians, right? Not all of them are incredibly business savvy enough, and some of the hoops to jump through to get those funds were confusing in many ways. So
Yeah,
there were some artists that I know that wish they would have learned how or had somebody that could have navigated that better for them. So I can't lump
yeah.
them all into the same boat there because we can't expect
No,
them to have the business savvy to have figured it out. However, we do know some that took shitloads of money and still didn't pay any crew members, and that came
those
out,
are
I
the
think.
ones I'm talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
those are the
did
ones
come
that I'm
out on
talking about.
some, and they deserve the
Yeah.
backlash they got on that front.
Yeah, I mean, I know a particular band
Sure.
who didn't take care of
I
someone
think
who
we
was
all
with
know
them
one or two that we
for
can.
30 or 40 years, and
Yeah.
he ended up pretty hurting, like I
Sure.
actually gave him money out of my own pocket at one
Yeah.
point. And we're talking artists that are worth, hundreds of millions of dollars, so
Yeah.
it was really really sad to see
Yeah.
some people just go,
The
"Hey, you're
artists
on your
that
own, man."
size, yeah, the artists
Yeah.
that size that I refer to them as the one percenters. When they could take care of
Yeah.
their whole crew and it's basically equal to a bar tab to them, and they don't,
Yeah.
then yeah,
Yeah.
they've made
No
a
good.
statement there. Yeah,
No bueno.
sure,
No.
sure.
So how did you get from traveling the world with your family to finding your way into the, I guess, sound
Man, I had kind of a
touring?
felonious start.
Didn't everyone in this industry at
Well,
that time, right?
me and a couple of friends broke into the Rainbow Bar and Grill
Oh, that's a very
late
interesting
at
story.
night, through a window and drank a bunch of alcohol and puked everywhere. And this was back in 1987. And
Well,
Mario, the owner, opened up the next morning, and he wasn't thrilled. And my friends ran scared and whatever. And I didn't run. And it's a small area at the time, right? And Mario actually fed me breakfast and talked to me, and it turned out he knew who my dad was. And he's like, "Well, what the hell's all this about?" I'm like, "Man, this is the Rainbow. This is legendary, you know what I mean?" And he goes, "And you want in this?" I said, "Yeah." And he actually facilitated me getting a job at Gazari's.
really?
Yeah.
After you ripped them off?
Well, I didn't rip him off. I drank some alcohol and
Oh,
whatever. We didn't damage the
yeah.
place. Nobody was do that. It was a shrine test. Nobody was going to damage the
Yeah.
place and anything like that. And it wasn't.
Yeah.
You have to. You're old enough to understand. It was a different time back then. There was a
Yeah.
difference of like going in to like destroy and steal from somebody, and there was just the young. You're fucking around, doing bad things and whatever, but
Yeah.
nothing. Yeah,
Just
no
dumb
real
things.
malicious intent. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was a
Yeah.
different time. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I started basically in '87 in LA. And I've been in it one way or another ever since. I've dropped off the road and done studios here and there for bits of time, and then back to the road, and then off the road. But it's
But Lazari's, what did you do? He got you a gig
no,
there
first
doing
thing
what?
was fucking clean stickers off of walls and bathrooms and clean XLR cables. I mean, start at the bottom. And, it's
Yeah.
one of the things now, like I started the Future Forward program several years ago. And the Future Forward program is based around LPS because I felt that we can't bitch about the quality of labor coming up if we're not part of their education. And I
Yeah.
understand that LPS is kind of an executive level kind of event. So I wanted to get a way for students to attend LPS for free. students and
Yeah.
educators to come for free. So I started the Future Forward program. But one of the things I teach them, because they all go, well, I want to be a tour manager. I want to be a tour manager. I want to be, everything's got manager behind it. And I always ask, I go, well, how much time have you spent in audio? And they go, none. Okay, how much in video? None. How much in lighting? None. It's like, well, how are you going to tell me you're going to manage these departments when you have no fundamentals of any of them? You can't manage them. And I said, so you got to give that up. I said, you got to go spend time. And I said, tour management isn't something that you necessarily aspire to want to be. It's something that ends up being bestowed upon you, so to speak. Especially when I came up as, I knew how to do audio. So it was kind of like, well, that time period, there was a time period was like, let's remove the two and pay one person just a little bit more to wear both hats kind of vibe. But now, I advise that when you spend time in different departments, you're going to find out which one you actually find synergy with. And you may find out, screw it, I don't want to be a tour manager, when you find out what it really is. And you may fall in love with lighting or fall in love in audio. And that becomes kind of your shtick, if you will, and you kind of then realize I'm not going on to become a tour manager. A tour manager requires such diverse skill sets that you can't just get, because some of it you can't get without failing. We never learn from winning, right? Most tour managers learn and know how to do certain shit because they got bit in the ass by it once before. So it takes that time in to kind of, have that muscle memory, and also to see those red flags coming and be able to read them correctly, if you will.
Well, and sometimes, you're just babysitting pop stars
Well,
too.
look, we call those road managers. There's a different thing. Road manager, tour manager, different things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everybody's got their terminology, I guess. But it's kind of, look, you're a therapist, you're a husband, you're a wife, you're a father, you're a this, you're a that, you're a counselor, you're a psychotherapist, you're an accountant, you're
Security
a diplomatic, whatever, negotiator, you're all of the above in that. And, that model's changing somewhat now that they've now just created a person for every single thing. And yet we still wonder why prices are raising.
It's very compartmentalized now,
well,
isn't it?
and every one of them has a price point. Like when you think about back what it used to be that there was a manager and an artist and an attorney when they needed one, just to look over the record deal or whatever else. But offers would come to management would talk to artists. Then all of a sudden we broke out and we needed an agent, and the agent now needed 10%, but the manager wasn't going to drop his fee of 10, 15%. Now 25 cents is on the dollar. Then we found out neither one of them are good at accounting. We had to get a business manager, and they want a minimum of 5%. Now we're 30 cents out of the dollar, right? Yeah. And then you start looking at the rest of it. It's like, okay, that 30 cents is gone before we've paid taxes, salaries, anything else, and now there's all these other accoutrements charging. And yet without this pragmatic approach, we're all saying, well, we've got nothing to do with ticket prices or any of that. And well, everybody is just somebody else's line item. And when we have these different departments just throw line items in, of like lighting goes, I need all this to make it work great and good. Audio does the same shit. Video does the same shit. None of them talk to each other. They just submit what they want. They're all Toys R Us kids, right? Every front of house guy feels he needs half a truck of rack gear to run a show. Everybody needs. So then they throw it all, and then the group and the TM put it all together and go, well, based upon our expenses and based upon our guarantees, this is what it's going to be. And all of a sudden tickets, and I get that there is systemic greed in the industry when it comes to tickets, but to say that we've got nothing to do with it, no. Let's be honest with ourselves. We absolutely have something to do with it when we're throwing the production that we are at it. And the industry did come full circle from, let's call it the Allman Brothers or the Grateful Dead. And I'm not trying to be genre specific, but they make great points at this, that they started with, please record our shows and hand it around, because they understood the only place they really made money was off the live show. They didn't really make shit off the records. You know what I mean? And the letting tapers record the show and trade it was just a business card to get more people to come to their show and buy merchandise. And it went full circle that here we are again with artists going, we don't make shit off the records or our music. We only make it off the live show. So then all of a sudden we saw the introduction of the 360 deal and these companies that now want a piece of touring, right? And we'll give you a flat fee and we'll take the rest, you know what I mean? Because now it's the last bastion of where there's money still on the fork, if you will. So I think we could be a little more pragmatic in that approach sometimes, rather than just every department out for themselves kind of vibe.
It's always drove me a bit crazy, even though I've always been on the equipment supply side for the most part. Um, you know, do we really need 1,000 moving lights on every show? Do we
No.
really need, 1.9 millimeter video screens when the audience is 50 feet away and can't tell
Right.
the difference between that and 3.9?
Sure. Sure.
Do we really need all of these things to, like, I remember standing next to a lighting designer one time, and I won't say who it was, but he said, you know, is this the Model B? I'm sure I specified the
Yeah.
Model C, and I'm making this up.
Right.
And I said, well, the Model C wasn't fully available yet, and really the only difference is this one little wrinkle. Well, I don't know if I can do my show with the Model B.
Yeah.
And, like that kind of weird
Yeah.
stuff. Like, to me, you got to remember the fan in the seat.
Sure.
The kid in the seat who's
The
just
button
like
seat
cheering on the
doesn't
band.
know. They don't know. And look
They
at the
don't
day of
know.
the day of the audiophile is long gone. I mean, look,
Yeah.
basically now we're the smiles or cries of a Friday or Saturday night.
Yeah.
That's what we are, right? Nobody's
Yeah.
intently going, I don't know about the compression they got on the snare. And if they do, it's a wannabe audio guy. But the numbers of audiophiles are way down because everybody's yelling at each other. They're on their phones. It's background music to life and a reason to engage in a group activity kind of thing. And I'm not saying the music's not
Yeah.
important. Of course it is. That's why they're there. It's why we're all here. But I think that hyper focus is being manipulated a little bit for a narrative again. And,
I agree. I
I
agree.
think
You know
true
who taught me
artists,
that? You know who
well,
taught me that was a club owner. When I was selling nightclub lighting in the late 80s, and I was trying to convince this guy to add this one wrinkle
yeah,
that was going to cost him an extra 20 grand.
right,
And he said, Marcel, let me ask you a question. And I said, what? And he said, if I add that light for
right,
20 grand,
yeah.
how many more drinks am I going to sell on a Friday night? And I said, probably none. And he goes, then why the fuck are you trying to sell me a $20,000 add-on?
Yeah.
Like, I don't need it. It isn't going to make a stick of difference. It's not going to
Yeah.
make me that much better than the club down the road. Get the fuck out of
Well,
here
so
with your
it's,
20
it's
grand.
interesting if you were to do, and first off, I despise exit surveys, and I'll explain why. Exit surveys are a very antiquated look because what you're doing, and they're dangerous for that matter, what you're doing is you're asking somebody upon exiting to bring up to you what they didn't like, and then you're sending them away. So their last thought about the experience is what they didn't like, and then you send them off. That's a terrible model. But when you talk to people really at what irks them at events, it's not so much the entertainment as much as it is the $15 water, the $80 parking, the this, the that,
Ding, ding,
whatever,
ding,
that
ding,
all
ding.
again, it ends up being subcontracted, compartmentalized out and squeezed. There's an old saying of don't leave anything on the table. And it always rubs me the wrong way. It's like, look, really good business is a byproduct of good relationships. In my opinion, you know what I mean? And you don't have to squeeze everything. You can give a little more and go cumulative over grab. And then when I hear, well, they don't have to buy it. And it's like, well, that's kind of a ridiculous response. What if you just lowered it and sold them all out? You'd actually make more money.
Yeah.
You paid to truck this shit in here. And then you hike it up, and how much are you trucking out? It's like I used to tell the younger acts all the time, don't put a fucking date on your t-shirt. And they go, why? And I go, because I guarantee you're going to go home with 1,000 shirts with that fucking date on it. And then what?
Yeah. Good point. Yeah.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
Unless
your
your merch numbers are good and you can walk that fine line, of putting your dates, you're going to end up with some of those shirts that then you're going to pay to bring them out with the new shirts next year and try and sell them at discounted. You know what's going to happen? They're going to buy the discounted one, not the new one. And then you're in that rut. It's a cycle that it's hard to climb
100%.
out of.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
So. I mean, but when did we lose common sense? Like, I mean, was this way
Did
before
we ever
COVID,
have it?
or did this just
Did
happen
we ever
during
have
COVID?
it?
Well, I think our industry made some sense like 10 years ago, but I think a lot of it doesn't today. Like I roll my eyes so many times or just shake my head and go, why? And, like I just created an AI business that makes rental companies more more profitable, more productive. It basically uses AI to match up cross rentals. So
Sure.
to find all the gear in the world and say, what do I need? I need this thing right here. I need 100 of them. I need them in Chicago. And, it's incredible the pushback that you get from some people who are like, but I've always done it this way. Like I've always basically put two guys on phones for 4 days to try and find one piece of gear.
Look,
And
change is always scary. Change is always hard to navigate, and
yeah,
muscle memory when it's deep in the muscle is really hard to mitigate. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And when it
yeah.
comes to that side, like so, look, one of the panels, it's a closed panel at LPS, is a vendors panel roundtable, and basically I started it. Or we started kind of that. The idea is can't keep I said it from the stage last year. Don't call me competition when half your truck is full of my cases. We
Mm,
know how incestuous the industry is. Stop treating it like competition. We're all colleagues. There's a lot of mid-range good-sized vendors that the reason why they are is because they lean on all the ones that they sub rent from and to is what's made them the size they are. We all sub rent
yeah,
from each other. So get
of
over it.
course.
And the best way to do this is this panel started for this reason is get a bunch of vendors in the room and say, let's start talking about availability and shared calendars. We don't want to know who your clients are. We don't want to just show us that, hey, on these dates, this is available. And if you've got that, we could bypass the weeks of email and hoping for a response to find out, do you have it? How much, whatever. We then would see they have it. It's there. Now it's just a, hey, how much for this, for that? You know what I mean? Kind of deal.
Guess what,
And
Chris? I've got exactly what you're
okay,
talking
but
about. That's what
what
I
ends
just
up
built and
happening is we're
launched.
giving everybody work because right now we're seeing the Home Depot and Walmart approach to vendors is quickly taking even bigger hold with the monopolization of some of the companies that are pushing mom and pops out.
Yeah.
And people say it's not dangerous. And I go, okay, well, look, when you get down and you only have two vendors to choose from and they're dictating how this industry is going to go, that's dangerous. Okay. When you
Yeah.
push all the mom and pops out, you also learn competition also spurs innovation. When you get a corporate that their SOPs are written, right? Most corporations cannot change from their SOPs. And all of a sudden they just became this mundane push of how they do things. And that's it. They start dictating to the manufacturers how much they're going to pay for gear. They're going to want their name silk screened on the gear that they're paying for. And all of a sudden it just becomes this monopoly and everything's padded the more different assets they cover. Where when that mom and pop, here's the other side of it. When that mom and pop, you may be a big client to that mom and pop or that smaller regional company, right? Well, when it's gobbled up by the big one, you're no longer shit because they've already got clients that are way up here. So you're not being
Yeah.
treated with that level, or the employees that maybe have been there for 15, 20 years and thought they had time in, were going to grow. Well, now the new company that owns them doesn't know shit about you. And you're going against 100 other people now vying for
So
that
true.
position.
Yeah.
So, we need to be very cognizant of this and watch and be careful. In my opinion, I'll always champion the blue collar side of this industry. I'll always champion the bands that are grinding out the 200 dates. I don't chase one percenters. You know what? The margins are small and it's a pain in the ass. So I'd rather have the relationship with those that are out there doing it or be talking to tomorrow's bigger clients as they're coming up. I'd rather
Yeah.
go that route.
Yeah. So I mean, are you, and I think I know the answer, but are you on the side of no private equity or private equity, or it's
So
just part of the world
well, I
now
wouldn't
and
say I
we got to
call
deal
it a
with it?
side. I wouldn't say I call it a side. I would say that, my understanding and history of knowing VCs and the equity groups is that, they have an interest span usually on their books or projects that only lasts X amount of time. And then they
Hmm.
look for new things to get into, and I get concerned with that because let's say one of these huge entities now that's going that Home Depot, Walmart route and buying everything up. Let's say that they went under, right? Well, we have to be clear that we're not went under, but let's say they wanted to liquidate and move out of it. Well, and it becomes a real estate deal. If that amount of gear were to hit the market, it devalues everybody else's inventory like that.
Right. Yep.
Okay. And we're already running into issues with nobody knows which way tariffs are going to be. I like, you look at your watch because it could be different, by 1 o'clock this afternoon. We don't
Yep.
know. So, and money's expensive right now. Money's questionable right now. Tariffs are questionable right now. So there's a lot of vendors that are kind of like, what are they doing with their CapEx? How are they going to do this? What are they putting on hold? You know what I mean? And we also ran into that issue for that time period of chips and then this or that. That already stagnated kind of technological push, if you will, our innovative push. And then tariffs hit, and everybody questioned that. So now all of a sudden, gear is aging further out between models, and you're walking trade show floors looking for that wow item, and it's the same regurgitated shit. You're not seeing a lot of wow. You're not seeing a lot of new because they either can't get the parts, wait too long for the parts, the product's going to be too old, can't ship it to the States. And really, there's people out there buying, I wouldn't call them inferior, but lesser known brands just based on availability. It's like, wait, you have it in stock here now? I'll take that. Instead of waiting to see what might happen.
More so in sound than lighting. Lighting, for the most
LED
part,
is a big one. LED is a big one.
Yeah, but LED, everyone has inventory for the most part in LED fixtures.
No.
Oh, you mean LED screens?
Yeah.
Well, it depends on the brand. I mean,
you're speaking of lighting.
If you're only buying, but if you're only buying Row, you might have to wait a bit because.
Well, no, even if you look at Row, Absent, Fabulux, you look at the bigger ones, and inventory isn't as big as you think. You know, and even in lighting, they generally, because, well, first off, they ship as they're kind of going in a constant shipping pattern, Roby and Chauvet and everybody else, but. It's different. Lighting also doesn't age out quite as quickly, and it's interesting to me because video walls are still ugly, right? It's just a flat wall. The back of it's ugly. Everybody got excited because we can make a sphere, but they found out that's kind of a one-trick pony. You know what I mean? Or, trying to make shapes in it. And so we make shapes with soft goods or with, some sort of set implementation to give it a different shape and stuff. But the only thing that has changed in LED walls at all is pixel pitch. That's it. Other than that, it's the same thing. The only thing that got stupid expensive and went up was content creation, where 30 seconds could cost you $100,000, right? So it's, which, I mean, obviously EDM and the DJs really needed because,
Yeah. Well, but back to the private equity thing. So, to me, it's a double-edged sword, and I kind of waver back and forth on what edge I'm liking or disliking the most. But the thing is, as shows continue to get larger, and you now have 2,000 moving light shows where you used to have 40 moving lights on a show. And, the mom and pop doesn't really have access to a show like that right now. No. So it does end up with one of the larger, and then they're backed by private equity. And then the more private equity needs to go in there, the more control that private equity company gets. And like you said, they're buying these companies, not because they're patient and all of those things. They're buying them to
line item.
Well, and all they're doing is they're taking it up to the next level so that they can sell it to the next bigger private equity company at a big profit.
Yeah,
and then that
you sell your book.
A big profit.
You sell your book. It's an old model.
Correct.
An old model.
But they don't have longevity in mind. They don't give a shit about relationships at the end of the day.
No.
And so that's where it does become a little negative. And I'm bulking a bunch of private equity companies in. The smaller ones are not like that. Like some of the smaller roll-ups really are very much.
But the smaller ones strive to be. The smaller ones strive to be, and they follow the metrics and SOPs of the larger ones. So their intention is still the same. And I get again that, look, we're all just somebody else's line item, right? But there's a difference of line item and a love of an industry compared to line item and a love of how much you get out of the industry.
Yeah.
Those are two different narratives and approaches, if you will. So again, I'm more about the psyche and vibe of things. Everybody knows what, or not everybody, I don't want to sound like that, but everybody that knows me knows what I do. They're friends of mine. I know about their wives and their children, and that's what I talk about because I don't need to talk about what I do. If they need me, they'll call me and ask me. It's not that constant grind and that push of sell, sell, sell. Every client I have is just a byproduct of my relationships, and they call, and I like it that way. You know what I mean? I like the psyche vibe of it that way because I'm all about vibe. I don't like the fatiguing approaches that have been in place for so long. It's kind of like, in my opinion, trade shows are very antiquated, dying vibe. Like, I believe we've been seeing the death rattle of some of the biggest names of them for some time. And the reason being is that, let's say you've got a company, and this is actually factual to a point, that a company spends $750,000 on a trade show for a booth, right? They're doing the antiquated model of badge scanning, okay? And I even wrote an article, and I titled it, can I scan your badge 20 more and I get a bonus? because they're just scanning anything that moves, but the actual lead generation by the time you vet it out to anything real is less than 5%. And I'm being very generous because you just have people just scan. Oh, I got 20,000 badge scans. Oh, great. How many of them are actually applicable, and how much time are you going to invest and money invest of vetting any of them? So let's say this company spent $750,000 on their booth, their travel, getting everybody there. And they go, well, yeah, but we closed $480,000. And then you ask that question. Yeah, but was that client already in your pipeline, in your email chain? It's like, well, yeah. So what you did is you spent $750,000 to close 480.
Yeah.
You know, and they go, well, Chris, what would you do? And I talked to them about the model that is LPS. It's like, look, you could take 100 or 50 of your really top prospects. You could fly them into a resort, put them up, wine them, dine them, hang out with them, have a very focused personal connection with them for a weekend, and then send them home for less than $150,000. And you got to your key people, and you got rid of all the noise and the bullshit and the added expense.
Here's the thing, though. I agree with you. However, I've seen so many companies try exactly what you're talking about by dropping, for example, LDI, and then going and doing an offsite
Didn't say
somewhere
drop.
instead.
I said drop footprint.
But now you're doing both. So now you're doing 650,000 or whatever you said.
No. You can do,
plus you're doing this other thing.
You can be a presence at LDI without spending anywhere near six figures all day long.
Yeah. I've done it so many times. I don't agree with you on that.
Yeah, that's fine.
And I've seen so many manufacturers do it. I've tried it myself. You know, and I was a big budget exhibitor at LDI with Martin and with High End. It's just too, people forget you so quickly if you're not one of the big 3 or 4 booths at the show. And,
you know, people said that about Fender and Gibson at NAMM. I don't think anybody forgot them.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, who are they being replaced with? You know, there's not anybody that's sort of on the same level as Fender and Gibson.
Well, look, you know, people that follow Roby. People that follow Chauvet follow Chauvet. And you know what happens all year long? Their sales reps are out there visiting people. So take away the throngs of the 30,000 people walking the fatiguing halls of NAB and LDI just to get through the noise of all the companies are not going to purchase from just to go see the rep that they already know and hang out with outside of LDI.
Yeah. I'm not advocating spending 750 grand at a trade show but I did it for a long time and I understand, you know, it's almost like
I think you're going to
being
see
addicted to cocaine. You know, it's bad for you, but you still do it.
I think you're going to see more executive events pop up, especially, you know, as we're looking at what Dreyage is doing, as we're looking at what Encore is doing. I think you're going to see them scale back just because it's untenable at the Dreyage now.
Chris, by the way, it's not just that. Like, I don't know if you've booked a room in Las Vegas lately, but Jesus Christ, like I like staying at the Renaissance because there's no casino. It's not obnoxious. It's quiet. And it was always like $175. It's $400 now to stay at the Renaissance.
That's right.
You know, one of the LDs I know was complaining on Facebook a couple weeks ago. He was in Vegas at one of the hotel bars. And he said a cocktail's $30 now.
Sure, depending on what you order. Absolutely. Look, I'm at LDI every year. I'm at Infocom.
Insane.
I'm at NAB. I'm at NAM. I'm at all of them because I have to be, right? That's why I'm there. I have to be there. I have to know what's going on. You know, you can't. I'm basically an executive level consultant these days, have been for years, and you can't consult your clients if you don't know. So I have to be out there in it and in the know to do my clients any good. But that said, you know, when you do look at it, and I bounce around between Resorts World or, you know, wherever else. And, you know, I stay where I stay and they're all expensive and all the drinks are expensive and, you know, just getting in and getting out. But I think we are going to see a change. One of the biggest bonuses of being the director of LPS is that I speak to individuals from every single facet of the industry all year long. And that's logistics, lighting, vendors, manufacturers, audio. And I talk to all of them all year about what panels we're going to do and how does, you know, what this is and what that is. And it's one of the reasons that our panels are purely communal led, because trying to set up a PowerPoint and Hot Topics 6 months out, bullshit. The topic's going to change. So we actually have people that are regulars that say, Chris, yeah, I'll help. And we call them conversation curators because that's all they are. We don't start with topics. We get in the room with everybody and go, so who's got a topic? And anybody from the audience at that point goes, what about this? And the whole room talks about it in a communal fashion. And when that conversation dies, the next one, or it leads into another one, and that's a healthier aspect to it. But a lot of the conversations are turning to that it's becoming untenable. It's being priced out. The return isn't there. Even the exposure that you speak of no longer has the weight it used to, nor is the exposure as big as it used to be now. So it's, I'm not saying it's going away tomorrow, but I do see a change.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you. I see the same change. And I think, COVID helped to drive that even further forward. Sure. I think a lot of the manufacturers, like there's no longer, when I was in that side of the business at a high level in Martin or high end and making decisions on things like trade shows, one of the things was you had a trade show season that became your launch season for new product.
Sure.
And so you might launch a product at the show in Frankfurt, and then or Plaza might be the beginning of your season, and you go Plaza, LDI, and then the show in Frankfurt. And that's all changed because because of the internet and people doing these road shows and stuff, they're launching all year. So the product launches when it's ready. It doesn't wait for LDI or Plaza or whatever was your big show in the past. And plus there's more shows now. There's the one in Spain. And so,
well, you can go to IMAX, you can go, there's so many that nobody can afford to do them all. And now you're also seeing manufacturers have actually reverted back to showrooms.
Yeah, it's true.
Like even Abson just recently in the last 6 months opened up an LA showroom downtown, opened up a New York showroom, opened up an Orlando showroom. Yeah. And they're starting to pull back because they're recognizing now that Abson did, I believe, 42 million last year or the year before. And I actually flew over. I was at the headquarters there and looking at what they're doing and knew the plans were coming. But it's kind of, when you look at that approach, it goes back to, okay, well, we're not seeing the exposure we used to see anymore. You're not seeing the certain people at the shows anymore because nobody wants to go pay $500 for it. Basically, granted, I don't know why there's a registration LDI because all of us get a registration to walk the floor or whatever else, right? But it's kind of, when you do it, it's still going to cost you $1,000 plus to do it if you're going to do it right.
Yeah.
Okay. And some people are looking at it now going, they're just like, it's for what? I'm going to go see, like Craig Burrows and I used to talk about this, and I miss Craig. He was a character, but we used to talk about, so hey, I flew all the way here to see you. I see you all the time.
That's funny.
What are we going to talk about that we didn't talk about 3 weeks ago when we saw each other? What are you going to show me that I don't already know? And that's that thing of, it used to be, as you said, you were releasing, but you were releasing something that was a wow factor. When's the last time you saw a wow factor?
It doesn't happen often. Like usually there's one or two at every LDI, every Plaza, usually there's something. There's something that blows your mind.
I love
but
walking into booths.
It's the weirdest thing.
Chris, we changed the housing.
Yeah. I mean, the big lighting manufacturers aren't as exciting as they used to be. No. But the other thing is there's other challenges out there. Like, are you familiar with DTC, the term DTC, direct to consumer?
Sure.
Lighting products, I'm sure you've seen it, selling on Facebook or selling on Amazon.
Absolutely.
And, that's a big change. Like that takes out not just the dealer, but it takes the dealer, the distributor, the specifier. It takes a whole bunch of people out of that food chain and brings the price down of, call it an average offshore made moving light from, $5,000 to now it's $500 or $700 or something. Right. And so that's going to have a massive impact.
Well, have you seen the
brands are less important?
Are you familiar with the professional car buyers? There's people that they just sign up to get online for the next new Ferrari, and then they just sell their position.
Yeah.
But their whole income is based on them getting on these lists for these sought after cars.
Yeah.
And they
it's
just wait till they move further up the list because some billionaire from the Middle East or somewhere else is going to buy their spot in line. Well,
Well, my lawyer does that with Lamborghinis.
see,
So
so right.
he
Yeah.
buys a Lamborghini, and I've always asked him, like, why are you doing this? This
Because
is such an
he'll make
expensive lifestyle.
20%.
He makes between 50 and 100 grand a year. He's
20%.
always driving a brand new Lamborghini.
Yeah.
He's usually got a Urus SUV and a car.
Sure.
And he drives them for a couple of months. He's
Yep.
got another one on order already. As
Yep.
the other one's coming in, the dealership sells this one for him because they're behind on cars, and they got somebody who wants that SRO or whatever
Mhm.
it is. And so they sell it for him, and he makes 50 grand. And
Well, we now
I
have
mean,
we have indistinct importers now too. We have people that just recognize any industry that they can see a markup, and if they're based overseas, they'll buy a shitload, send it over. They don't have
yeah,
the sales teams or the advertising, but they've got enough funnel knowledge to go ahead and get it out there and make their profits. So now we just
it's
have these
true.
indiscriminate distributors that are kind of playing the game, right? And we're seeing that more and more. And when you say that, what we learn about the industry, I don't think the common sense thing changed. I just think that with the adaptation and depth of social media, we're just more cognizant of it now because it's thrown at us from so many different directions that we question how much common sense there was because a lot of shit used to hide in the shadows.
And the world's a whole lot smaller. The world got a whole lot smaller when you
Yeah.
connected everyone
Yeah,
through
that's
social
right.
media.
Well,
And
let's take music, right? I give this analogy to students a lot that back in the day, and I hate to be ageist, but I'm old. Don't let the gray hair fool you. You know what I
uh,
mean? It used to take 6 months to work a single across the country that you'd release it,
yeah.
have to get on the radio stations, you'd have to go play all these different shows. Now less than 60 seconds and that song's worldwide.
Yeah. 6
And
months,
the
it's dead already.
Right. And
There's
well, and
there's two new ones.
the longevity of a hit now, it used to be the hit for the summer. Now it's the hit for the week, you hope.
Yeah,
And
it's
if it is
insane.
the hit for the summer, then it's massive and ridiculous. But to, get into those shark infested waters is that much more difficult. There used to be X amount of albums released a year. Now you can't even count the amount that are released
Well,
each year.
as you lower the barrier to entry, you obviously raise the
Sure.
competition heavily from a
Sure.
standpoint of numbers anyways.
Right.
And I don't know if you've paid any attention to like Suno or the other AI
Little
music
bit.
apps.
Little
They're
bit.
good. I mean,
Yeah.
they are really
Little
like,
bit.
what's the 50 Cent song that has been redone like in sort of old 40s or
In the
50s
club.
style?
In the
No,
club.
it's something of men.
Oh,
Many
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 men or
men,
something.
many
Many men.
men,
Yeah, many
many
men.
men.
Yeah.
The AI version of that,
Oh yeah.
after we're done, go look for it.
Oh
It
no, I've
is
I've heard them. You're talking about the
unreal.
lounge version of it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
is so friggin' good. And
yeah,
I'm not a
yeah.
50 Cent guy or anything,
No,
but
but
it is really good.
well,
Really, really good.
even regurgitation has been incredibly sped up. It used to be, they'd wait for every generation to redo a movie, right? Now they can
Yeah,
almost not even wait that long and redo it. You know what I mean?
it's crazy. Well,
Yeah,
and soon you're going to see movies with Marlon Brando in them, or
sure.
music videos with new songs from Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
Like that's some of the interesting, weird stuff that
Mhm.
I'm actually curious to see how they spin some of those things.
Right.
Or a younger Tom Cruise, or you can just do anything with this.
I was involved with a company that brought me on as a consultant that wanted to do the history of music as a hologram feature. And I know what you're going to say, but I use hologram just as terminology that most people, yes, we know there's no such thing, whatever, but just
Yeah.
to say. Anyways, that they wanted, it was Johnny Cash on a horse as the narrator, and you were going to see Janis Joplin with a live band and Jim Morrison with a live band, and you were going to go through the history. And the tech was there to make it amazing. The show was immersive and going to be great. But what we run into now, and my whole question with AI, or my whole concern about AI, is the same thing that ran into is, first off, you just can't get that many estates to agree, number one.
Yeah.
And you kind of start pushing the AI side where everybody questions, okay, but who owns it? Right.
Yeah, there's all kinds of copyright issues right now with
well,
AI.
but we
Yeah.
hadn't written any for AI yet. So the
Yeah.
law's trying to catch up. And unfortunately, right now, we've been living in such a litigious society for so long. The backlog to get to those laws
Yeah,
is
it's crazy.
years.
Yeah, it's
So
crazy.
in the meantime, likeness and this and that are just going to be ripped to shreds until any real playbook has time to be even just sorted,
Well,
vetted.
or they just keep going and sue me when you get to me, you know?
GearSource was founded in 2002 with an ambitious mission to support live event businesses buy and sell gear globally. Since that time, the company has transacted in more than 100 countries, selling $250 million in sound, lighting, staging, and video gear. GearSource continues to evolve the platform for global growth, enabling localized currencies, fraud identification, protecting buyers and sellers, plus global logistics support through Gear Moves. The company is developing new features, including Gear Sync, allowing you to manage up to 400 listings at once, and Need Zone, an automated shopping assistant for hard-to-find items. Take full control over your gear with a visit to gearsource.com today.
You know, like ChatGPT, OpenAI, and all of these models are basically building these models. They're capturing all the data from us, you know,
Sure.
from whether it's our business websites or our personal
It's
Facebook
community
pages
built.
or
It's community
Twitter
built.
pages, but against, you know, without your permission. Like
Oh,
they're
yeah.
basically taking all of my content
Sure.
from my websites and,
Well,
you
when's
know,
the last time you read line for line the entirety of terms of service on anything?
yeah, I mean, I do all the time, but on my
You do?
own sites, right?
Okay.
So I
Yeah.
don't on other people's sites. No,
Yeah,
you're
see?
right.
You just
Although,
click to
you know what I do
continue.
now?
Click to
I
continue.
basically,
Yeah, but
no,
the majority of
I
the world
copy
is
and paste into ChatGPT and say anything that
sure.
I should
Yeah.
be, you know, concerned with here.
Right. Well,
And
you're an outlier because 99% of the world
yeah,
click
no,
to
I know.
continue. Click to
Yeah, of
continue.
course. We've been
You
doing
know.
it for years.
And it's
And
like
then,
everybody, I love, I don't love it. It actually just, it speaks volumes about everybody that gets on Facebook and goes, damn it, freedom of speech and censorship. It's like, first off, this is a privately held platform that you agreed to the terms of service of, and you clearly have no idea about what freedom of speech or anything
right.
else because you agreed to this shit. And yet here
Yeah.
you are on here bitching about it. It says a
Yeah.
lot.
Chris,
You
I
know?
love the people who paste that thing in their Facebook thing
Oh, yeah,
saying, I do
I
not
do not
agree to
give
the
the,
use
yeah.
of my photos.
Shit.
I do not give. Guess what? You already did. Like when
Yeah.
you signed up for this free
That's right.
service, which is pretty incredible.
Yeah.
You know, Facebook is free and it's pretty incredible. Same with Instagram and all the other ones.
Sure.
And, you know, you agreed that you're
That's
paying
right.
for this by
You
giving
agreed to
us
it.
access to your data.
And let's be
you know?
clear, anybody who thinks that their info is not out there is kidding
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah.
Did you get a driver's license? Yeah. Did they take your picture? Yeah. Did you get a passport? Yeah. Did they take your picture? Okay, but now you're afraid of the airport taking your picture?
Yeah.
You got to work
it's
with me here a
incredible.
little bit. I mean, let's just be, come
Yeah.
on now.
Yeah.
It's
I gave
ridiculous.
up on that stuff.
Yeah, it's
you know,
ridiculous.
before it ever even became a
They've
concern.
already got, I
Like,
just have people going, well, I'm not going to let it take my picture. And I go, okay, but it's the same company that took your passport picture. What the hell are you on
well,
about?
and what are you worried about? Like,
Well,
unless you
that's
plan on, you
good
know,
question, isn't it?
robbing the Louvre,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know, and then having facial recognition on you.
Right.
What are you concerned about?
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
really. At
Well,
the
in
end
my
of the
opinion,
day,
look, everybody goes, big brother this, big brother that. And I'm of the opinion of, and I don't want to touch too much because I don't want to get into any politics or bullshit like that. But
Yeah.
I will say this, that if you're downtown and you're fucking up,
yeah,
you need to be stopped.
yeah, 100%, absolutely.
If
No,
you're fucking
absolutely.
up. If
Yeah.
you're fucking up,
Yeah, yeah.
So,
You know what? You don't want to get in trouble. Don't do bad shit.
Yeah.
You know, it's
there
like,
you go.
I remember Chris Rock, and this is political and I don't want it to sound that way or whatever, but
Sure.
Chris Rock was saying, if you don't want to get pulled over for no reason, stop being an idiot.
Yeah.
Stop being
Yeah.
stupid. Don't
Stop
do
giving
dumb
them a reason.
shit.
Well, I push back to that on a little bit because unfortunately we do have some people that'll pull you over just because of the way you look.
Of course. Yeah.
So that
of
sucks,
course.
you know what I mean? But think
Well,
about
and
it,
I lived through
you bring
that.
up Chris Rock, think about it. You could not have a Richard Pryor today.
Oh, none of them. None
And
of
yet
them.
here's the difference. Everything that everybody calls comedy now and what they laugh at is all from shit that they would have said, oh, no, you can't do that. Where do you think everything you think is funny came from?
Of
I'm not saying
course,
that
yeah.
Richard Pryor was the nucleus of this, but I'm saying that the old era of comedy and shtick, if you will, would not be allowed to happen at all today.
I keep
Johnny
seeing all in the
Carson.
I see All in the Family
Oh
clips, and
shit.
I just laugh because it used to be one of my favorite shows, and I
Sure.
just laugh my ass off.
Yeah.
And there's just no way you could make that show
No.
today.
No
There's
way.
no way you could
No
make
way.
that show because
Even Netflix
it
would be
was
a little
racist, it
yeah.
was
Even Netflix
misogynist,
would
it
be
was all of it.
concerned about shows like that. Even they would be like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I saw somewhere on your bio or something that you did some work with Chappelle, and I
Yes.
love him. Like, first of all,
Yes.
he's one of the funniest guys on earth and
Yes.
brilliant. But the fact that he's like, "Fuck you,"
Well,
you don't like
Chappelle,
it,
so
don't
if
listen.
there's a line, he leaps over it only far enough to make you talk about it. And once you talk about it, he succeeded because that's what he's
Yeah,
trying to do. He wants you to talk about it. Look,
yeah,
conversation is healthy. Diverse opinions to a point without hatred and bigotry and bullshit
yeah,
are healthy. So it's kind of, and he does that, and the way the Chappelle thing even came to me was actually rooted in audio. A gentleman, Dave Oken, and I, during the pandemic, you spent a lot of time on the phone, and we were talking about, like, look, what's the hardest thing for audio? And it's spoken word. Where's the hardest place to do audio, spoken word? In an arena. When is
yeah,
it the most dangerous of time? When the punchline is worth 10 million, then the
ah,
audio is critical, right? So
yeah,
we were talking about putting together a rig specifically for comedy, and it wasn't even Chappelle at that time. And then Oken ended up in the Chappelle camp and said, well, I've been working with Chris on this thing. And at the time, and I don't mean this as a plug to anybody or whatever else, but at the time I had gotten a unsolicited phone call from an audio friend of mine who went into this diatribe about the new robotic PK system.
right.
And we started talking about it, this and that. And all of a sudden, one of my clients is sitting next to me overhearing the conversation. And he goes and does his due diligence. I do mine. He ends up buying a very large portion of it. Oken comes to me for the Chappelle tour, and we end up putting it out. But out of that came two incredible quotes from Dave himself. One was, it's so good it makes me perform better. Number two was the
Wow,
best he ever sounded. The third was not a single ticket buyback for sound complaint on an entire arena
wow,
tour.
yeah, that's cool. That's cool. By the way, that system, that's my hometown. I'm from Calgary.
Yeah,
And so I remember going with Jeremy and standing there in the
they know me
showroom
well. Yeah,
and watching that system move.
yeah,
And I got goosebumps. It was
yeah.
just like when I saw my first moving light.
Sure.
It was the exact same feeling. Like I felt like, why the hell would you not want a
Yeah.
system that
Well,
moves after
our team
this?
would walk the arena, and we would, if you found a dead spot, it's like, okay, on cabinet 5, let's kick that one, and since it does have that individuality in its control, we were able
Yeah,
to, okay, we could mitigate that, mitigate that, mitigate that. And it
yeah,
turned out to be an incredible success on that front. And,
yeah,
look, I'm an audio guy. Okay, it's what I did, and I love audio, but I also believe now that this whole I only work with this system kind of thing is like, really, because I'm pretty convinced I could blindfold a lot of engineers, and if I just ran the system flat, you're not telling me what's playing. There's just
yeah,
not that big of secrets in technology anymore.
yeah.
Even in lighting, there's no real
I love to
secrets. And
hear
here's the
that,
other
by the
thing.
way.
We're so many years into this that every single tech designer, what have you, has almost now worked for every iteration of whatever competition there was.
True.
So the pool of tech is so incestuous at this point that, again, there can't be secrets, because this guy
Yeah,
was here for 20 years. Now he's here, or he's finishing his career out there, but he's still bringing what he did there to here. And it's been that way for so many decades
so
now that
true.
it's
Yeah.
just what it is.
It's just blended. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's funny you say that because I've said that to other people where, I used to, again, I started work for Martin in 1991.
sure.
And for many years, I used to be able to look up at a rig and say, okay, that's got cyber lights and clay packy, whatever, and VL5s or 6s or whatever. I could tell you exactly what was in the rig. Today, I can't. Like
Yeah.
today, everything, it's very ubiquitous now.
Well,
Everything
what you're
looks
also
the
going to find
same.
is when you open it up, it's like, wait, that's the same circuit board that's in there. Why?
Yeah, all
Because
the
there's one
modules look
manufacturer that
very
makes that
similar.
board, right? So
Yeah,
And it's kind of like that was one of the things when I was tapped for LPS, which came around in another odd fashion. But when I was tapped for it, I said, okay, look, I'm willing to do it, but can we have a conversation on a few things? And they said, sure, what is it? And the gentleman is Mario from OSA, who now owns LPS, and he acquired it from TourLink and tapped me on the shoulder. And I said, well, first thing, I'd like to change the name because I felt that the silos that existed between corporate events, executive events, municipal events, touring, what have you, they don't exist anymore. We all use the same tech, the same vendors, the same crews, the same labor, so there's no difference. So I didn't want it pigeonholed to touring. The next thing is I didn't want any direct sponsors on general panels because it always becomes a timeshare pitch. So it's kind of like, okay, look, we got a lighting panel and it's brought to you by ABC Lighting, and your lead moderator, surprise, surprise, is the founder of ABC Lighting.
Yeah.
So you're into a timeshare pitch about ABC Lighting. So the general panels are just run by the community and for the community. Then what we created was things that I termed focused panel. So if you have, let's say, a focus panel brought by Sennheiser, and they do a great one every year with us, there's no subterfuge. You're going in to hear about Sennheiser. But when you go into our general sessions, it's complete communal conversation on just that loose topic. And I found that we learned more out of that than the obligatory talking head giving you the timeshare pitch. Well, the way we do it and the reason you should use us. And I can't do that. I just couldn't get behind that approach, So the whole idea behind LPS was that it had to be forward thinking, had to be educational, and couldn't be fatiguing. So we have no fatiguing signage anywhere. There's no timeshare pitch approach to our general panels. It's held at a resort. We include all the food at a bunch of open bars because what we found, if you're not reaching for your wallet or your purse, your shoulders will drop. You'll engage better.
Yeah.
Let's get people back to talking to each other, not badge scanning and, sending I don't care what anybody asks. We're never going to send our attendance list because all of our attendees love the fact that you get no cold emails of, we see you're attending. Do you have 5 minutes to find if we have some synergy and have coffee? You know what I mean? And you get that from 70 different fucking vendors. And all of a sudden you're fatigued before you even get there.
It's not pitch fest.
No, hell no.
So I want to dig into this because you keep saying LPS, and I want to make sure that, the people who have been sleeping for 30 years know what we're talking about. So Live Production Summit, give me the 30-second elevator pitch on Live Production Summit. What
Live Production Summit is a completely, I'm going to use the term agnostic event that is built by and for every facet and every level of the industry. And the way I say that is it is open to anybody because, again, you're not competition, you're colleagues. We all need each other. We can all do bigger shows working together. So if you're a vendor and you maybe, I want to bid on this show, but I don't have this, but you partner up with another vendor and you can pull that off. You can fight against the monopolization and these monolith size, vendors that are popping up, trying to homogenize everything. You can do it. The other side of it is that we believe that, again, more networking and more communal engagement is healthier for an industry than, again, just sitting there listening to a talking head or following a PowerPoint presentation. So we're really about engagement with each other for a reason. We don't hand out everything and all the lists because we want you to talk to people. We don't want you to target people. We don't want you to hunt people. We want you to talk to people.
Right.
You know what I mean? And look, there's worse places to be than Palm Springs in January, but we also set it up in a sense that it was never meant as a profit margin. If it breaks even, we're thrilled. And the way it goes is we negotiate the room rates at a brand new, beautiful resort to be only $279 a night. We include big opening night reception with carving stations and open bar included. Breakfast and lunch, real breakfast and lunch, each day included. With the general, you get a big wine awards dinner included. But our awards are purely just peers patting other peers on the back. They can't be bought, can't be purchased. A third-party company handles it. It's literally just you saying, you know what?
What a concept.
This guy kicked ass. We don't do a 4-hour-long award show. There's no acceptance speeches. You come up, you take your picture, you get the fuck out. Congrats. Yeah. But it's literally just to celebrate our peers and nothing more. We don't try to add any other weight to it or anything else like that.
So who is it for? I know it's called Live Production Summit, but
Yes.
I believe it's outside of production as well, right? Like it's
Well, I don't
the
know what you
industry.
call outside
Well,
production.
so logistics,
Well, logistics are a
our
heavy part of
caterers,
production.
but our
Logistics are
caterers part of it. I mean, I
wouldn't you
guess
say
so. When I think production, I think sound lighting video, but that
Okay,
maybe
so
that's
to
just
me,
me.
sound lighting video doesn't get there without logistics. So logistics
Yeah.
is a big part of production to me. But so if you just look at our sponsor list, you know, it pretty much tells you everything. So you've got everybody from obviously every brand of act is in there: PK Sound, Avid, MA, Ayrton, MDG. Then we got Pixel Hue, Novastar, Megapixel, Dedicated, Absent, Apollo Jets, On Tour Logistics, on and on and on. Master Tours there every year is co-presenting. Upstage is co-presenting. All Show is co-presenting. So what they all recognize about LPS, and the reason why we keep having return sponsors at this level, is because we are one of the ones that allow everybody to attend. We don't charge more because you're competition or anything. We want everybody there for healthy conversation, but we also believe that we cover every single facet. So it's not just about you possibly finding business biz dev for your company. You may find solutions for your company. You may meet a new logistics company to work with. You may meet a new vendor that fills a niche that you have. So again, it's not just biz dev. There is areas for you to help your business by other businesses.
Yeah. No,
And
that
then, of
makes
course,
sense.
the
And
future forward aspect where we grab students from USC, UCLA, and everything else. And we have luckily, some very forward thinking sponsors that even cover rooms for students to attend. And we've
that's
had
cool.
students, we had Danny Wimmer Presents hired 6 students on property immediately. And we get some that get internships and everything else. So we nurture the idea. We don't, they don't work the event. They're not, pointers or anything like that wearing a t-shirt. They're young peers. And they need to be treated that way as young peers, not free labor or trade for their registration. I call that bullshit, is what I call that. If they're going to show up, they're young peers, because you know what they are? They're tomorrow's innovator. They're tomorrow's boss. They're tomorrow's client. They're tomorrow, period. But if we're going to sit here and bitch about it, then let's be a part of it. Let's be a part of helping them be tomorrow.
I like that.
So
Yeah,
that's
like
the
that.
approach of LPS.
And so your attendees are our industry.
Yes, everybody, from every facet.
Vendors, designers, engineers.
Vendors. So we have big vendors. Upstage, is a vendor. Obviously, Gateway's a vendor. Both Gateways, for that matter, attend. You know what I mean? We get representatives from all the others. So we get a bunch of vendors there to meet, because they're also there to speak to manufacturers and as well as end user clients. We get a lot of top TMs, PMs, designers. Our design panel is usually like a Rob Koenig and Cosmo Wilson, or a Tamlin Wright, or whatever is our design panel. You know what I mean? Getting into the nits and gritty of it. We've got people, Chad Oleg of Fallout Boy, Jim Runge, all these people. And then we get all the younger, that are also coming up and coming in. And then you get hotel reps, you get travel agents, you get private jet companies, you get tour bus companies, logistics companies, you get companies. One of the more innovative things I've seen recently was a young lady who came up with a product called Crowd Cushion, that when I found her at this little trade show in the corner, and I was like, God, you should not be here. And I gave her a free booth her first year at LPS, because I was so wowed by her tenacity, because that's something I believe you can't teach. Gumption. You have it or you don't. So this young lady came up with a slip that goes over barricades and has hundreds of sensors in it, and it is triggered to set off warnings and alarms for crowd crush.
Jeez, that's
cool. Absolutely
cool.
Brilliant
and necessary. Yeah.
Yep, called Crowd Cushion, and I immediately introduced her to a good friend of mine, AD Anthony Davis, AD Security, who I don't know if you know, but he's pretty high end, and he quickly got involved. And it's just like, then you realize that these could be branded if you wanted them to be, but they're still serving an incredible purpose, because now we now have a pre-warning of crowd cush in some way. I'm not saying it's perfect, of course not, but it's more than we ever had before. That to me is innovation. And it was innovation that she came up with, just caring about the community of live events. And I went, I will champion this all day long.
Yeah. She solved the problem. You
She
know,
did.
and those are my favorite
Yeah,
products, are the ones
that's
that
right.
solve problems. Like
That's right.
I have businesses come to me all the time saying, "Do you think this is a good idea?" And
Yeah.
my question is always, "What problem are you solving?"
Yeah.
If you
What are you
can't
solving?
answer that for
Yeah.
me,
And when it's
then it's a
safety,
terrible idea.
when it's
You know?
safety, it's incredible. Like years ago, I started building triage cases for our industry, and they have AEDs, chest compressors, chest wrap,
Yeah.
everything you can imagine in a road case.
Yeah.
And I'd hoped by now I'd have a bunch of, I mean, this is years later, and Def Leppard bought them, and Kiss bought them, and Motley Crue's got one, and Megan Maroney's got one of mine out there, and Chappelle had one out there, and they're all over the place. And I thought I'd have a bunch of competition by now, but nope. Because unfortunately, and I think my record is well documented about mental health and safety and security in this industry, but we still treat safety and security as a line item.
Yeah. An
And that's
expense.
problematic. And most people don't realize that at shows 9 times out of 10, or yeah, I may be exaggerating that, but I'm not far off. I guarantee it that paramedics aren't scheduled till doors.
Yeah.
90% of the problem happens at load in or load out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it's kind of like, look, and especially me, I've experienced heart attacks on the road. I've had other people, I've lost, unfortunately, crew members on the road. I've lost other people and fans on the road at shows. I mean, and it's just one of those things when you're doing high capacity events for X amount of decades, the law of average means you're going to experience a bunch of this shit. Like when we go into a festival, you know that when you put X amount of people in a space, you're going to have X amount of sprained ankles, X amount of dehydration, exhaustion, whatever, you're going to deal with it. But why not be more prepared? I used to say, well, I'd really like 6 EMTs. Well, Chris, you can get away with 2. And it's like, you know what? 2 are great until they're on the other side of 25,000 people and I need them.
Yeah.
Because again, it's a line item. So it's being
it's
always
funny. My son's a racing driver, and we were at a race one time in, I don't even remember. Oh, Ocala, Florida.
Florida,
at a
sure.
racetrack there. And so one of my good friends, one of the other fathers, had a heart attack, and the only reason he lived was because they had an ambulance there when they weren't required to by law or by the insurance agreements or whatever. But it was because the owner of the track believed in having an ambulance there.
There you go.
And they stopped the race, and the ambulance took care of this guy and told him flat out, if we weren't here, you were dead, because the 12 minutes to the hospital, you wouldn't have survived.
Yeah, that's right.
And that blew my mind. I mean, and it was just the consciousness of this person who owned the track to make sure that there was an ambulance.
Well, we still push back. I like, okay, let's take, and I get that you can't cover everything, but let's look at certain levels of subterfuge here. That, okay, the crew walks through metal detectors, fans walk through metal detectors, but none of the buses or trucks do.
That's interesting. Yeah, good point. Yeah, who are we more worried about too there,
Well,
like,
look,
you can put a lot of bad shit in a truck.
If you really believe that there are no crews out there that carry, you're kidding yourself.
Yeah, that's true. I know people who do. I know.
Right.
I have friends who are on the road.
But they also know you can just put it in a lighting case. Nobody's searching that truck on its way in, and then it's in.
Right. Yeah.
Right. You know what I mean? So it's like, now I get it that, making some dent is a dent, and I champion that. But please don't tell me, oh no, it's rock solid, when it's like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
I mean, it just can't be at that level. Like a lot of, I remember when it first came in, especially with detectors, people were pissed off because, well, we can't make them wait that long. We need, well, then buy more metal detector. No, they're too expensive. Yeah. It's like, okay, look,
Yeah. Back to LPS, Live Production Summit. So I have to admit, I don't think I've been there since it's been named Live Production Summit. I had been at TourLink a couple times in the past. And so I'm going to go next year. And for a lot of reasons. One, everyone keeps telling me I need to be there. And I love those networking types of events.
I'll set you up a booth and you could do some live interviews there.
Perfect. Let's do it.
Gotcha.
So I'm committing here on the air. I will be at Live Production Summit next year. So I'll go on your website or something and figure out how to sign up.
We'll welcome you there.
And then secondly, so you're obviously planning the event for next year. Is there anything new or surprising or exciting?
So this is the thing about it, that we don't. We just create a palette for this industry to use. We don't push any particular narrative because that would be disingenuous in my opinion. Okay.
Yeah.
So really what it is come January, it gives everybody a chance to talk about what they experienced the previous year in its entirety, what needs to be dealt with or talked about for moving forward. That can't be predicted mid-year. So there's no point trying. If you want to keep genuine communal conversation, then you need to let it actually be genuine communal conversation. And what
Yeah.
ends up happening is, again, you just get everybody from every facet, every perspective. Everybody's allowed to speak. Now, again, if you're hateful speech or any of that bullshit, I will personally escort you off the property. But we've
Yeah.
never had that issue. What we have are people that literally want to come and they have something to say. There's no dumb questions. We have a lot of people whose badge will have a little symbol on it that says they're willing to be a mentor if somebody needs a mentor, that they're willing to give their time. But again, look, if you don't ask the question, you don't know. Your question may spark a conversation that creates innovation. So
Right.
all questions are welcome.
Yeah.
Everybody has a voice. So there is no like, oh, is there something new? Well, there's something new every year because we deal with something new every year. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's always, it's a platform for everybody to use. I will say that some of the vendors or some of the manufacturers and sponsors, when they come to me, they're like, and I always strive to like, well, have we seen it or not seen? Please, bring something new. And so there was this one company that got a hold of me, New Salt Laser. And if you look online, you'll see the pictures of it. And this laser cannon shoots 27 miles. And it's kind of funny that there were people flying in and seeing it past their plane, like up into the sky, taking pictures of it, going,
wow.
that's got to be LPS. It's got to be. And then they land at the airport and they're driving towards that 27-mile high beam. And they get there and they go, God, it is. This is one of the funniest things. One of the Valley UFO sightings or whatever. They had a whole page going crazy about it. There were people from all over the valley driving to it to find out what the hell is that. You know what I mean? And I was like, now see, there's innovation that got a bunch of people's attention. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we're always looking for new. We're always looking to talk about tomorrow. We're always looking to educate not just others, but ourselves. So I can't say what's new. I'm looking forward to learning.
What is it? 2 days, 3 days?
So we have a golf tournament. So basically Wednesday night, we have a sponsor and then golf party. Everybody together just for golf. The next morning is a shotgun start with prizes, golf game, a shotgun round. We usually get about 75 golfers on average, again, from all walks of the industry. And then that night, Thursday night, is opening night reception where we've got carving stations. It's a ridiculous amount of food, open bar. It's in our little, we don't really like to call it a trade show floor because it's kind of not, but we put a 4-sided open bar in the middle of it and you got all the booths. And well, again, when you look at the brand alignment of a Sennheiser, Netgear, Absen, these are bigger names that are there doing their thing, right? And then the next morning we don't do any keynote speakers because again, this isn't about like I won't even mention any, not that, somebody coming out, oh, you're going to take hold of the day and all that. No, we don't do any of that shit. What we do is we give everybody that has a panel or a focus panel a couple minutes to give the entire crowd a synopsis of what they're going to be talking about, because you can kind of get it by reading on the site of what it's about. But now you get to see the person's vibe that might be presenting it. And they may say something like, you know what, I want to go see that. And we find that to be more powerful than somebody trying to give some speech on positivity or whatever else. I mean, we hope everybody's positive. Of course, we push a positive vibe, but let's talk about what we're here to talk about. Meet the people that are going to be talking. Then we break into sessions. Then that night, usually Friday night, is the Master Tour Awards, which are an interesting one because theirs are data-based only. There's no voting. They have the largest data. They have 85,000 monthly users, Master Tour. So they can tell you the most used hotel, the most used venue, the favorite venue by attendance, the pre-production facility, who was the most, user that puts in the most information, which was a dear friend of mine, Eric Frankhauser, a couple of years ago, which makes total sense. Detail-orientated guy, great guy. But so theirs is data-centric only. And then the next morning again, we go back into panels, and then we have a reception that goes into the awards dinner where we celebrate our peers and we cap the night out that way, and then we're done. So those playing golf show up Wednesday, those not show up Thursday and leave Sunday.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
sounds like an incredible weekend.
And it's all at a
what's your-
beautiful Palm Springs
Yeah.
resort. And again, we negotiated the room so low. There's no Uber. You don't have to stay on property. $279. This place is normally $600 a night. So $279 to stay on property at the resort, and we're feeding you. The different tiers are, it's full price is $800 with the awards dinner, $600 without the awards dinner. However, every one of our sponsors has negotiated some level of discount. So whoever your favorite sponsor is, get a hold of them. They've got a discount code. Some of them can get it down, including like Master Tour has the biggest unprecedented discount of $200 off that they actually pre-purchased for people, to try and celebrate it.
That's cool. And what's your attendance? Is it like hundreds or thousands?
It's hundreds.
Or...
Yeah. We would
Yeah.
never want it to get to thousands because again, it loses its personal kind of, you know what I mean? And again, we're at a resort. So everybody goes, well, because there's all these different things that claim, oh, we're sold out. I wouldn't know how to say I sold out. I have an entire resort. I guess I could say that I can't fit any more people in the ballroom, but I would never get into the marketing of hurry now or sold out or again, it's just disingenuous to me. We don't play those games.
It's the non-sell sell.
Yeah, we don't do that shit.
Yeah,
that's not us. Look, we're 100% about championing vibe. We're all about positive vibes. That's if it's not a positive vibe, even I'm out.
Well, and I've heard from all of my friends, that you got to go to it. Everyone keeps telling me you got to go to it, but I'm not really a vendor, so it's
you don't have to be a vendor,
and I'm not really a customer either. I
don't have to be
platforms, and but I just like all the people. It's the same reason I go to the
you
party.
could learn.
Like,
look,
I don't
you
do
have
business
this
with
show,
LDs
right?
Anymore.
But you have this show, which means you could
course.
learn so much more topical content by attending that it just furthers
but
the
Chris,
show.
I already know everything.
You're one of those. That's right. You did say you're in lighting, right? You did say you're in lighting. There is a delusion amongst people in lighting.
Here we go. So you also, because you have lots of free time, you're at OSA still too, right?
So this is again I am actually not an employee of OSA. I am contracted by OSA. Yeah. I'm contracted by LPS. I have been my own entity forever. I've actually never been an employee. Yeah. It's purposeful because it allows either my clients or me, but I will say this, that I don't have any blips on my my timelines. Everywhere I'm at is for years, other than of course the obligatory bands that schedules don't line up and you move to the next band. That's considered normal. But stuff like this, no, there's no blips, but I'm contracted by OSA as their chief innovation officer, because I'm a Toys R Us kid. They do get the byproduct of my tours just from relationships. So my touring clients, be it Limp Bizkit, Megan Maroney, or when it was Chappelle or things like that come through me. Again, it's just byproducts of my relationship with OSA. And look, to me, Mario is a very astute individual who, if you look at OSA's history, there is no equity group. There's no VC. It's one guy. There's no board. When you want to talk to the owner, it's Mario that calls you up and talks to you. You know what I mean? The entire place, he's got 125,000 square feet in Vegas, 65,000 in Nashville, 35,000 in Chicago. And he runs it all with less than 100 full-time employees, and it's just him.
Yeah, that's wild.
So, and he's very accommodating. I have deep amount of gratitude because he doesn't micromanage either. And when it comes to LPS, he's allowed me, like when I came up with Future Forward, I had to call him because it was going to cost him money. I said, look, not only do I want to give them free registration, I still want them to be able to eat food. They're students. And Mario, he immediately went, yeah, but it's for a great cause. No, do it. You know what I mean? So that we could give students an opportunity to attend something for free at this level and find work and learn was huge on his part. The name change, he understood and he championed. The no fatiguing signage everywhere or timeshare pitch approach, he agreed. And we can't say we're a conference. We can't say we're a trade show. What we'd like to say is we're we're a big networking event that takes place on a beautiful resort at a perfect time of year that you just get to hang out with everybody and
February,
work.
right?
January.
January. Okay. Yeah.
January in Palm Springs, where it's look, there's
Yeah.
worse places to be depending on where you are than Palm Springs in
Is it
January.
before or after NAM?
It's we're 8 through 10 before.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, we're 8
Yeah,
through
I'm
10.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna be there
Yeah,
this
we're
year.
8 through 10. But you'll find that it's hard for people to explain it to other people. And it took us a little while for people that did attend to tell other people going, look, I can't, you just got to go. And then when you walk into it, you'll go, get it. Got it. Okay, here it is. This is a different kind of deal. You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah. And we champion that. We love that.
So many of my friends are constantly like Cosmo last year. I remember he called me from the airport. He's like, "You're going to be there, right?" And I said, No, I'm not." And he's like, "Why?"
I love Cosmo. Yeah. Cosmo, and he's a staple each year. And, him and I go back a lot of years. It's something that when I was tapped to be director, and again, I feel very fortunate to have Mario allow, because Mario, this is the other thing. For years, we didn't even mention OSA because we didn't want anybody to get the wrong idea thinking this is to push OSA when it's absolutely not. It champions every vendor, and you see vendors as sponsors. And here's the approach is that whatever I was short that I didn't get from sponsors or whatever else, gear or whatever else, OSA would cover as their sponsorship. That's how it's been approached. It's never been to push OSA. It's never been OSA centric. We've never had OSA people pushing panels. There's never been an OSA panel.
It wouldn't work. It wouldn't work if you did.
It wouldn't. And really what
Mario, it wouldn't work.
Yeah, Mario champions all the other vendors of let's get together, let's know each other better, let's work. Again, it's not competition, it's colleagues. The more the vendors work together, the stronger they all are. So it's never gonna be OSA centric. It's never gonna be in-house vendor centric. This is open for everybody at the same price point. Everybody offered the same experience without the fatiguing normal bullshit.
I like it. We didn't talk about ticket prices.
Oh.
And we didn't talk about ticketing companies, and we didn't talk about some of those things. So we might have to do this again someday because
I'm easy to find. I will say this though, that the production industry, we need to be, and we can be a little more pragmatic, and we cannot sit here and say, well, we've got nothing to do with ticket prices. Check yourself.
I agree with you.
We 100% have a lot to do.
Everything adds a little bit to
like I said earlier, when you have every department that's a Toys R Us kid out for themselves and just throwing their line item at what they say, and they never see the cumulative number of what it, they only know their department, worry about their department. I do miss back when, if we had somebody sick on the bus, the rest of us had strong enough fundamentals to absorb their job for a day or two because they're no good to us sick. Nowadays, what I hear a lot, unfortunately, is I'm not doing that. That's not my job. You're going to pay me more. And we're creating a bunch of one-trick ponies. It's kind of like if an audio guy says, well, I only mix on that console. Well, all you told me is you only know that console. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, so I do think we could go back to being a little more of team player on that front. It used to be that when you finished your gig, you went to every other department head and said, can I help? You know what I mean? And until they all said no, then you fucked off back to the bus and did whatever. Now it's just...
how many times I hear that on this podcast? Like, if I ask someone like
we're all geezers.
Like Featherstone or like any of these people, if I say, what's the secret? And they'll say, say yes and then figure it out.
Yeah, that's a great point, though. I don't say yes or no. What I was taught and what I champion and what I like to teach is you never say no to a client. What you say is, let me look into it for you. Put together all the facts into what we call a feasibility report. Give the client the feasibility report, and then it's them saying no or yes. You've never answered the question. You've only provided them more information for them to answer and make that decision.
Yeah,
you never tell a client
that's a different
no.
spin for sure. Yeah.
Well,
I get it.
Look, there's an old funny story about Prince, right? I mean, granted, you walk in any room and say who's been fired by Prince, and everybody's going to raise their hand except for maybe Takumi Saguchi. And I love Takumi, but he's probably the only one that never got fired from Prince. But there was a great story, and it's a true story, that back in the day, Prince is on the stage, and this is about lighting, as a matter of fact, and he calls the guy over. He goes, hey, can we, and the guy goes, no. And Prince just put his head down. He goes, so in the time I asked that question and you said no, you checked with the vendor, the manufacturer, and everybody else involved, and you just know this can't happen. Fired.
Ah, Prince was in Miami one time for he was opening a glam slam club in Miami, and a friend of mine was the designer of the club, and I happened to be there because I was supplying a lot of lighting for it, and the artist was there, and I got invited to lunch with the artist, and I don't remember if it was his manager or a manager or something, my buddy, and a couple other people. And so I asked the manager guy, I said, so, this is right after he did the whole name change thing. And I said, what do I call him? And he said, you don't. And I said, but what if I want to say, hey, so and so, have you ever thought about this or that or whatever? And
You
he says,
don't.
no, you don't do that.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, well, that's just fucking weird, like
Well,
I gotta be
so
able to call him something,
yeah, it does seem weird on the face, but it's kind of, in the times I was lucky enough to be in the presence of him doing his production, because I still tout him as one of the top guitarists to ever walk the earth.
Yeah, he was a
And
fantastic,
composers.
underrated guitarist.
Oh yeah, beyond underrated. But
yeah.
anyways, he had a certain way of working that worked for him, that there were certain familiar people that said things in a manner that were easily digested by him. So that's how he filtered things. Because otherwise, if somebody at his stature did open it up, he'd be getting noise from all different directions. And he would just, he was too much of an introvert. He would have freaked out on that. It's kind of like a lot of people have a lot to say about Axl Rose. I'll say that Axl Rose is one of the most honest, straightforward people I've ever met. Now, granted, you cross him and you get the other Axl Rose, but without crossing him, he has a huge heart. He's incredibly generous. He's a great conversationalist. You know what I mean? So again, it's what narrative gets pushed about him. However, he's also very cautious about how information is delivered to him, because back in the days when everybody goes, oh, well, artists like that are recluses. Well, we actually forced them into only being able to hang out in the Maldives and places, because if they walked into a grocery store, they'd never get out alive.
And then we superstardom.
Yeah, but then we bitch about them of like, oh, they're so standoffish. It's like,
well, so many people talk shit about Michael Jackson, how he was so weird. But
he was a little odd.
Like, no, but I mean, still, like, from what, 5 years old or something?
Yeah, but
he was
so
a megastar.
I said that tongue in cheek, because here's the deal again. If it was easy, everybody would do it. You have to be a little touched, or just, let's call it what it is. You have to be a little fucked up to be that level of creative and that big a star. If it was easy, again, everybody would do it.
You know what, though? So, quick story. One time, so I had a bunch of lights on Michael Jackson for his European opening show, which was in Prague, and a huge show, 125,000 people. And I was going to, I think it was the Plaza show or something, and I was taking Tim Brennan with me. Do you remember Tim?
I do.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I was taking Tim Brennan with me, and I was Martin at the time. And so we flew over there. We went to the show first before we went to Plaza. And at the show, Peter Morse says, hey, do you want to go meet the artist? And I said, yeah, that'd be fun. And so Tim and I go backstage, and Michael comes up to us, and we were introduced to him as a couple of Americans who flew over to see his opening show. Okay. And he was so grateful. He was like, thank you so much. I appreciate you coming all this distance to come and see my show. And I really appreciate you. Thank you. Like, he was practically bowing to us. And I was uncomfortable. Like, it was just, I couldn't believe it, because I'm in the presence of, the king of bop.
Sure.
And, but just the nicest
guy. I love those experiences. Like Fred Durst and I, when I come in, Fred will make a point, come over, give me a hug. And,
That's cool.
I always walk away. And then I used to watch Dickie, who, Dickie had been out there for so long, and people didn't understand the history of the Allman Brothers, the way they were a long-haired band in the South with a black drummer. In the late 60s and early 70s.
Wild,
you want to talk about a band that fought their way up and had 10-minute instrumentals, you know what I mean? And shit like that, and became the Allman Brothers Band. But I've seen him love his fans, and he always did, and he had a great respect for his fans, and he got into he'd invite them on the bus and talk for hours. We'd be late to pull out because he's having a great conversation. But then, you also get the ones that just show up with the pick guard that is going to end up on eBay. Or you had some, like, here's a funny story. We had these people banging on the bus door, and Dickie was kind of like irritated by it, and he opens it, and they go, well, we're Dickie's biggest fans. We got to talk to him. And Dickie's like, oh, he just left. He already left to the hotel. And they're like, oh, really, man? And they don't even realize
funny.
it. You know?
Yeah, we're the biggest fans, but we don't even recognize him standing right in front of
They
us.
don't even stand him, in the wheel well of the bus. So, they deal with a lot, and they do need to control and have a filter about how information comes to them. And some of them are still incredibly, have a lot of stage fright still, regardless how big they get. You know what I mean? And they have to get themselves in that frame of mind, Look, Fred Durst still has to become Fred Durst of the 90s. That's what the fans want to see.
Yeah, of course. Speaking of Fred Durst, the bass player just
we
passed away,
lost.
Right,
we did lose Sam 2 days ago. That
Very
was
young,
obviously
too.
a huge...
I didn't realize he was only 48 years old. I thought he would have been older, but
no, he's younger than me. Yeah, years younger than me. But it was obviously hit the camp hard. Everybody right now is just kind of taking their time to,
Was he original? Like, was he there from the beginning?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he stepped away for health reasons for a brief amount of time and then came back. And, it's, I don't want to, talk out of school. Let's just say that the whole camp is, of course, shell shocked, as anybody would be. And they're taking their private time to reflect and get through it.
It's a hard life, man. Being on the road, being in a rock band, being, you're supposed to be a hard ass and you're supposed to be tough and you're supposed to be all these things. But at the end of the day, you only got one body and
I've heard that being put around a lot, that everybody says, oh, you have to be this hard, tough ass. I don't believe that's true. I believe that what they're referring to is I do believe there was a difference of generations. And I do believe those, born in the 60s and 70s, I do believe that we, look, we grew up fist fighting in school was a normal thing. We grew up without the seatbelts, and you could talk about all the ad nauseum kind of points that were made, but it was a different generation that handled things differently. So I don't think that necessarily it was you had to be a badass. I would say this, however, though, I do think that you had to be a little more genuine.
Yeah.
And I do believe that, when you were full of shit, you got found out a little easier and things like that. I also do believe that, back in the day, when a young man talked shit to the wrong person, they got their bell rung for the first time.
I did.
I did. But when you get your bell rung, you learned an infinite amount of knowledge in that one moment that nowadays doesn't take place. And you got these people that just talk shit because they just think nobody's going to ring their bell.
Chris, it's a funny story. I don't think I've ever told on this podcast, but I think I was like 4 years old. I was born in a tiny little town in Alberta, Canada. Like, I'm talking 250 tiny.
Felt like a big boy.
And so I'm on Main Street and I decide to whip down my pants and take a piss in the middle of Main Street, right? And the banker was, one of my parents' friends. Everybody knew everybody there. And the banker comes out of the bank, grabs me, gives me the wicked spanking, that probably the worst one I'd had at that point in my life, and sent me home crying to my parents. And they said, what happened? And I said, Mr. Smith just gave me a spanking. And they're like, good. What did you do? It was good first, and then what did you do, right?
Yeah, right.
And but it was just a different thing, It was
it was a different time. So and I'm seeing a lot of narratives being pushed. I'm seeing a lot of narratives of mental health being pushed about that, and they're trying to be comparative of generations. And I don't think that's fair. Number one, I also think it's a cop out because there's a certain technique to narratives that if you already name the responses and shame the responses before they happen, you're setting it up to where the responses can't be used, or when they're used, you just go, see, we already said it would be that. You know what I mean? And it's a technique of debating, and it's a technique of doing it, so to speak. And yet most of the entities I see pushing that in mental health, I find out that they're actually strongly tied to entities that are monetizing mental health in our industry. Right. And so it's kind of like when you do the deep dive and recognize, okay, but you're tied to this company that's charging for it. So now it makes sense why your narrative is always so dark and why you're preempting any pushback, which is a known technique if you're into that. And I'm actually, again, into that kind of, how it affects the psyche kind of thing. So I'm familiar with when those techniques are being deployed, because what they're trying to do is shut off the retort before you can retort, or preemptively create a reason for the retort or shame the retort. And that doesn't, in my opinion, negate or mitigate the retort. So I don't think everybody's looking for hard asses, but I think everybody's looking to be, You got to be a little more genuine in things. And to say that this is the hardest, and no, have you ever been on an oil rig? Have you ever been, high rise construction? Have you ever done whatever? Yeah. So, before you sit there and say that this is the most difficult and hardest and so mental unstable, I'm going to call bullshit. And I'm going to say, look, there's a lot of difficult industries out there. And let's be clear, not all of them are for everybody. You know what I mean? Period of end of story. So the other side of that too is that I think we have a big misconnect of a lot of freelancers understanding what freelancer means. That, I can equate it to a landscaper. He's a freelancer, but if he doesn't get enough yards to mow, who's that on? It's on him. You've got to do your biz dev. You've got to have your license. You've got to have your insurance. That's what or go be an employee. You do have options, but to sit here and say that this is and I'm not going to touch too far on this because it'll open a whole can of worms. But let's say you have, let's say, when you sit there and you go work for a company and you don't like the way the company, does it, and you go, but I love this industry, but if you don't do it the way we want you to do it, we're going to hurt the industry. And you start running a narrative based on a threat, I start losing it, some respect for it. You know what I mean? And where it goes, and then they push back on, that narrative of saying, well, you could get a different job or don't have to do it. That's bullshit. And it's bullshit for this reason. Well, that doesn't negate the fact that it's true. So what you're saying is you want to force me to run my business the way you want me to run it. Just don't work for me.
Yeah.
I'm going to run my business the way I want. And if you don't like it, don't work for me.
Remarkably, I've had that conversation many times. I've had my own companies for 25 years now. And I've had those conversations, and it can open a huge can of worms, obviously. But I love employees because without employees, I couldn't have businesses. So to me, people who are willing to work for other companies, I love them. They're great. They're amazing. Sure. But I have so much respect and admiration for business people, entrepreneurs like myself, who freelancers at any given moment in time are 100% all in on their business, on their idea, on their, this is how I want to do things. And they're willing to put their house on the line and their, their relationship with their significant other on the line or whatever. I love these people. I love, and that's not self-serving at all. It's just,
let's also be clear that also a lot of freelancers and I push back against that term even because they're independent business owners. That's what they are. Yeah. They're their own business. They're selling themselves. They are their product, if you will. But
they get the same components as a business. Yeah,
but they allow themselves to look, not every band. This is the other thing. A lot of people hold up the 1%ers as the metric. Okay. Most of the industry, and this is the best analogy to it, a city may have one or two, an arena and an amphitheater where, a couple of big venues, right? Which means they're only doing a couple of big shows a month or whatever there. How many clubs are in that show that have buses and vans showing up, right? So the majority of this industry, first off, they don't have employees. They've got crews, that are independents. And they far outweigh what the 1%er employees are from what band's employee, number one. And they also, a good portion, most bands don't have a travel agent. You know what I mean? They just don't. Van bands generally don't. One bus bands don't. Most of them don't have a payroll company. 90% of them do not have a payroll company. If they're lucky, they have a business manager that helps them muddle through it, but they don't have a payroll company. Right. So when you look at the realization of what the blue collar side is, and the blue collar side is what makes this industry, they are tomorrow's 1%er, right? And when they get there, and if you talk to 1%ers, some of them, they don't like how business and how big they've gotten. It has to be this way or whatever else. But to use that as a metric for the whole industry for me is, again, that's misguided, because if you're going to set a metric, then you need to set a metric just below the halfway point, because that's the norm. And metrics need to be spent on that. But we also need to be clear that metrics take anywhere from 5 to 6 years to create. And I started telling everybody this out of the pandemic, that look, anything pre-pandemic you need to throw away. If you're using the old playbook, forget it. We're not even playing the same sport. But it's also going to take at least 5 years out of the pandemic. And I don't even count the first year back because it was a free for all. So you'd have to start the following year, right? But then you have to wait at least 5, 6 years to be able to look back and see if there was any peaks, valleys, or anything that normalized to even look at a metric. And we're not even there yet. And then we got hit with tariffs and some other shit, which blew the whole idea of what might have been a metric out of the water. So if anybody's sitting there going, oh no, we know exactly what bullshit you do. That's what I say. Bullshit you do. There's none of us. There hasn't been time to set a metric. Then those metrics got upended. So we're starting over again.
It's been such a complicated time for businesses in our industry because they
it really has
batshit crazy free for all to like, oh my God, costs are so high and I'm losing money on shows. Like, especially the smaller companies, $5-6 million companies are, well, it's weird because the smallest companies and the largest companies seem to be faring the worst. Yes. And all the ones in the middle seem to be doing the best, which
because it's cumulative business,
very
right?
Interesting thing.
Cumulative business. If you're allowed to allow your margin to be a little bit less instead of always striving to squeeze every last penny out of the biggest thing you could get. Well, when you look at how much energy you're going to expend into that, you know what I mean? And like I said, you're expending all that for a small margin, where if you put in the work and you have the cumulative that's doing it, within your bandwidth, of course, I think you're going to fare better. And that's why, like I said, I'll always champion that blue collar that's out there grinding it out because I find 100%. Them to be the most genuine. I find them to be the most, you know what I mean? And those are where those relationships really blossom and hold on when you're genuine with each other. That to me, again, it's that great business being a byproduct of great relationships.
Love that line. And on that note, Chris, I'm sure you have other things to do. So do I. I look forward to talking to you again. And when I'm at your event, maybe we can sit down for 15, 20 minutes and do another quick podcast, just talking about what's going on there. And
I'd love to. And again, please take my offer seriously. I will set up a quiet spot if you want, and you can interview.
Yeah, we'll do that. No, that makes a lot of sense. We'll do 5 or 6 or 8 podcasts from there that weekend.
Whatever you want to do. I just think it'd be shooting ducks in a barrel, considering who's on property that you could, ask if they want to take part. You could even do a couple of group ones, you know what I mean? That you just film on site. So we look forward to hosting you. And, awesome. Again, anybody interested in going, find your favorite sponsor and tell them to give you a discount code.
Good. I'll do that.
All right, man. It's been a pleasure. I was humbled by the invite, by the way. So
no, I'm humbled that you would come. You're a great talker. You love to talk. You've got great stories. We could have gone for 5 hours, but unfortunately I have a meeting in 14 minutes. So
go do
my
you.
Friend. Yeah. Thanks.
All right, man.